Welcome, everybody, to the Trojan AI webinar series. It's great to be here today. I am joined by Rebecca Brown and Todd Beardsley. This is definitely a webcast, a webinar I wanted to do for a long time, so I'm very, very happy that we were able to get Rebecca and Todd. So just quick intros. Rebecca is a senior researcher at the Citizen Lab. Rebecca's got an amazing background. Was in the military early on in cyber operations, but also worked at Nike, Rapid7, Apple. She's a SANS Institute teacher. Rebecca, thanks for being here. It's awesome to see you.
Happy to be here. Happy to see you.
Yeah, likewise. And then we are also lucky enough to have Todd Beardsley here. Todd also has an amazing background. He has done all kinds of things early on in his career, worked at places like Dell and Breaking Point, but also, Tipping Point as well, I should say. Also, at one point, was the purveyor of the Metasploit community. I did, Todd. I do feel bad because I know that you and I had this thing where I was supposed to write a Metasploit exploit, and I have yet to do that. But it is still on my bucket list, so it will
Yeah.
happen
You
before.
can use AI to do it now, Lee.
And that's a good point. Use like Claude Code. Yeah, that's
It'll be
awesome.
garbage,
Yeah.
but
Todd, we'll talk about that for sure.
okay.
Todd spent some time at CISA, and then which was amazing work there, and is currently the vice president of security research at Run Zero. Todd, awesome to see you. Um,
So thank you so much, Lee. And
yeah, so
delighted to join you and Rebecca.
yeah, no, it's good. It's good for us all to be together. All right, so we're going to talk about 2026, just kind of what we all think about what's going to happen in 26. But look, before we dive into 2026, we're getting down to the end of 2025. It's not over yet, but I guess maybe to start, it would be interesting to hear from both of you on what in 2025, from a security standpoint, kind of surprised you the most. Like what wasn't on your bingo card for 2025. And oh, by the way, sorry, before I start, I should say if anyone has a question, just feel free to ask, and we'll get to those. But sorry, go ahead, Rebecca. What wasn't on your security bingo card in 2025 that
So,
turned
a
up?
couple things. One that was brand new that just came out. I just saw a report from CourtWatch that said Ahmad Amar al Agha, I believe you pronounce it. It was the leader of the Syrian Electronic Army, appeared in U.S. District Court last month. Apparently, he was arrested at some point recently. For I guess the indictment. This was for actions, the website defacements that the Syrian Electronic Army did in like 2011, I
Yeah.
believe, like a
Yeah.
long time ago. They were indicted in 2016. He and a co-conspirator who is still at large. They only apparently only caught him, not his counterpart. But that is not something I expected to see. That was like a name I thought was like relegated to the history books. So seeing that pop up, there's not been a whole lot of information about like what happened or how that went down or what's going on. But I'm going to be watching. But yeah, that was not on my bingo card.
It's crazy how long it's because I've gotten some visibility into some of these kind of like trying to find these kinds of people, and it's I don't know, Rebecca, you might know more, but it's like the amount of time it takes for them to apprehend these folks is like unbelievable, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it is, to me, I think it's amazing that I think a lot of us who are kind of like more operational, we kind of move on with our lives. We're seeing, okay, what's going on, what's next? But there's this whole apparatus of investigations where they don't give up, they don't move on. They're tracking down these leads, and I think that's
Yeah.
amazing, and I'm really happy. And the only thing that would have been more surprising to me is if we saw an indictment or a court appearance by someone from the New Romantic Cyber Army. If anybody, there's a throwback if anybody remembers, because I still don't think that they actually exist. So that one would actually surprise me
That would
more.
have been, yeah. All right, Todd, what about you?
Boy, that was a good one. Mine's boring. It is so I was not expecting in 2025 all of the drama around the CVE program.
Yes, yes, it was.
I am on the CVE board. I run a CVE working group. I am a CVE super fan. I've been a CVE super fan for years and years and years. Um, and then back in April of 2025, 15 years ago, uh, we on the CVE board, we got this weird letter from some vice president at MITRE saying like, "Hey, gang, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Also, funding might end in 2 days."
Right.
And this is the first time the CVE board has ever gotten any letter from any vice president at MITRE. And
Right.
so took it very seriously. The whole world freaked out for a while. And since then, as you may have noticed, CVE has chugged along. Like CVE is fine. CVE did not see an interruption in funding or anything like that. But there is a weird I would say appall over the like relationship between like the CVE board, MITRE, CISA, and like every, you know, to every node has has connection, has edges to everything else.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's a really strange place to be in. So right now, everything, like I said, right now everything seems okay.
Yeah.
But it was a panicky event in back in the
Did
spring.
you see more, Todd? Were there more CVEs in 2025 reported than 2024?
Yeah, up and to the right.
Up and to the right. And it has been that way since the beginning of time, basically.
Pretty much. There was a year, oh, you can put me on the spot. There was a year, I want to say it was like 2009 where it dipped down. And it was a weird year where CVE, I think it was 2009, where the CVE project was like, all right, we're just going to let Microsoft, Oracle, and Mozilla like write CVEs, and that's it. And everyone was like, what are you doing? So that was terrible. But since then, like, it's
Yeah.
been basically up and to the right. Every year, there are like we're just now we have like 450 or something CNA CVE numbering authority. So there's way more than there used to be. Like when
Yeah.
I started, there were like 15.
Right.
So
Understood. Right.
and this is I think last year, maybe it was this year. I think last year MITRE was not responsible for 50% or more of the CVEs. Like it was spread out, right? So
So
I
since
think
we're
that's
yeah,
healthy.
and since we're on this topic, we can both of you maybe can comment on like,
It has nothing to do with AI, sorry.
well, but it might though. I mean, what do you think about like do you think the increase of CVEs is just general software development bugs as has always been? Do you think AI is fueling some of that increase? Like, how do you both think about that?
I'll go. I don't. So I think there is an expected amount of slop around some of the CVE reporting. Daniel at Curl has talked about this at length and how like he's not accepting reports from AI basically anymore
Okay.
because they're just they're too much hallucination in there. I think in general, so it's funny. I just did an audit a couple days ago because I was curious, like how many CVEs that were labeled as issued in 2025 rejected and how many were disputed before they were rejected because they're two different states. And the answer may surprise you. Click here. Now, the answer is 900, which is a vanishingly small number. There were 900 CVEs that were rejected. 800 of those started life as rejected. They were never even published to begin with. So that tends to be just like housekeeping for CNAs, right? They like reserved something and then turned out they didn't need it or it got duplicated somewhere else or whatever, right?
Right.
So only about 100 or so like have been published. Somebody cried and then it got rejected. So I don't think it's I don't either it's not a quality issue with CVE or CVE has a terrible, terrible quality issue and we're not rejecting enough. One of the two.
Okay. Makes makes sense. All right. Well, all right. Now let's start with something a bit broad-based for 2026.
Mhm.
What did both of you think about kind of this classic question we always kind of discuss, which is where the balance of power between the attackers and defenders will go in 2026? And like, how do you think that's going to change? Do you think it's going to change? Like, what's your perspective on that, Rebecca?
I think it's always shifting. I think there's always some sort of new technology or innovation that's coming along, whether it's something like Metasploit or a new way to approach problems, like when threat intelligence, first came onto the scene like 15 years ago. That is always just kind of causing these little micro shifts between attackers and defenders. Um, I think AI is going to cause those shifts to be a little more extreme, but I think it's still going to be a back and forth. Like, I don't think it's going to swing wildly in the attacker's direction, just because even if um, even if there are kind of these new capabilities, like we saw with the Anthropic report, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, where
Yeah.
the attackers can now operationalize some of these capabilities, defenders are doing the same thing. And people are writing reports about that as well. So I think it's going to be interesting. And I am going to be interested to see if maybe this is something that, upsets this kind of normal back and forth balance. But I really expect this to kind of be business as usual with attackers and defenders both kind of adjusting to new technologies and finding ways to use them to their own benefits.
Right, right. Todd, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think I think it's interesting, Rebecca, that it's like the expected value just moves, right? Just the the degree of shifts move. It's like, oh no, AI is totally winning and we're screwed forever. Oh, defense is winning and everything is blocked. I think that's interesting. I do think right now, and probably through what I believe in 2026, I think defense has like just looking at AI, I think defense has a leg up right now. I think what the biggest thing that I see that LLMs are really good at, this star, we'll come back to that. What LLMs are really good at is triage, which is wildly helpful for defenders. Defenders for the entire time I've been in this industry have always suffered from alert fatigue, too many alerts, blah, 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 right? I think LLMs can definitely help with triage. They will misclassify things, but that doesn't mean that that event just gets dropped on the floor and never gets looked at. It just gets triaged lower or something like that. So it's not like a total loss, right? Whereas with attack, um, we can I don't really believe the Anthropic report, to be honest. And I think attackers have a long way to go before they can really do much with a big asterisk of like phishing and social engineering. I think just the translation services are very good for attackers. But like all that said, what AI does get you on the attack side is scale, and you can scale your garbage just ridiculously high. And so like today, now when like people are looking for like, oh, is there like a POC out there? Is there a proof of concept exploit for the latest React bug? Oh, why, yes. They're all garbage except for two. You get to pick which two, and that costs, right? Because a lot of the like just every time now, any headline bug almost instantly has someone had typed into ChatGPT, hey, write an exploit for this bug, and then publish that to GitHub. Don't test it, don't look at it, don't do anything, and it never works, right? So
Right.
I think that's what attackers have now is that they can overwhelm that like research side of defense. But I think defense kind of wins on the triage.
Wow. Okay, that is interesting. That is not what I would have thought you would have said,
Yeah.
right? Because there's definitely this prevailing thinking, as there has been always, like we talk about how like, hey, the attacker doesn't have to comply with regulations, doesn't have to deal
Sure.
with constraints, right? And the defender does. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good segue to the Anthropic disclosure. So, for those that don't know, there was an Anthropic disclosure a few weeks ago about nation state effectively using Anthropic with a variety of agents to launch a large scale attack. It was pretty well, I thought it was well done by Anthropic. I don't know what both of you thought, but I'd be curious to, um, kind of what do you think about it? Was there any key takeaways for you, Rebecca? Did you learn anything from it? Does it kind of make you think about 2026 differently?
Well, so I'm really interested to hear Todd's perspective as well. I mean, when I read it, I thought it was an interesting report. I was really glad they published it because I
Yes.
feel like there could have been this tendency where a company is like, oh no, regulators are already like worried about use of AI. And if we
Mhm.
put this thing out saying somebody has misused or abused our
Mhm.
product that we're
Mhm.
developing, that like they're going to
Mhm.
come down on us. So like there could have been this hesitancy to even say that anything
Oh
bad
yeah.
happened. So I'm really glad they published it to begin with. Um, from a threat intelligence perspective, like I thought it was just a really useful perspective on what the adversaries were doing. and they kind of mapped out how they were using it. I thought it was great how they kind of tied it back to an earlier report they did where they talked about how they first started seeing adversaries vibe coding, using their models, and it's kind of the evolution and how quickly they were able to take it to this operationalization of the agents to do basically what like a pen test team could do now. I didn't read it as groundbreaking or everything is lost, we should just give up and start
Right.
using pen and paper anymore, again. um, because like it really is just a continuation of what we expect attackers to do. They're going to use the tools at their disposal to attack people, and that's what they did.
Mhm.
So what I thought was interesting was seeing how they're approaching things, what they were testing out. I can't imagine that, Claude is the only code or the only kind of models that they were doing this with. My guess is there was kind of like a POC, which is best. What can we use? How do they compare? Um, so I really took this as kind of a learning tool as what we can expect from adversaries so defenders can adapt. So from
Yep.
that perspective, I thought it was a really good, useful report that we can respond to. Um, and I know there was a lot of pushback, I think, on, is it being represented? Is it some people thought, is there not enough transparency? But again, I thought it was a useful report, and I again taken it at face value, and it seemed like it was well researched and well presented. I felt
Yeah.
like it was a useful tool. Todd, I want to hear what you thought
Yeah.
though.
What do
All
you think?
right. Rebecca, you're wrong. I I'm with you that I was also surprised that they published this. Coming from an offensive security background, Rapid7 was always real sketchy about like, hey, criminals use Metasploit too. And like that was not something we put in our marketing material. Anthropic went a different way. It's like, hey, even criminals use our stuff. Isn't that cool? And it felt kind of braggy and kind of like, oh, look at that. AI is good for something. Ah, ah. And that's kind of it was it read kind of weird and nonsensy to me. There was a suspicious lack of IOCs, and then when you actually read it, like they said it was something like out of a target space of 30 organizations, they got shells on like a couple. Cool, cool, cool. And maybe that's what you need, right? Maybe that's acceptable for a for a very well resourced adversary who can afford to be mostly wrong but a little right some of the times. Maybe that's good enough, right? But it felt like such a strange brag from Anthropic of like, hey, criminals use our stuff. And I don't know. Like, I don't super believe it because like what it ultimately like the things that they do reveal in the report is like, oh, well, they chain together a bunch of open source tooling that everyone has access to, that real pen testers already kind of know how to do, right? So it didn't strike me as particularly novel.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we thought here about it, because we did a bunch of reading about it, analysis on it, we did a blog
Mhm.
post on it. It was
Mhm.
more for us, it was more about the fact that you could manipulate these models to do bad things, and that is definitely a possibility. We've done some research around the notion of obliterating a model, which is effectively removing its safety instructions, and
Sure.
it will do really bad things, right? But we've done
Mhm.
that mostly with like Quen and those kinds of models,
Sure.
because that way we can simulate attacks against other agents and models, right? So
Mhm.
that's why we're looking at that. But it was interesting to us on that notion to kind of like increase visibility. Again, not that to your point, Todd, not that people shouldn't know that, but I don't know how much people know that. Like they really understand that these things can be manipulated and are manipulated. And when they're manipulated, sometimes they just do things like, maybe give you an email address it shouldn't give you or say a name it shouldn't say. But other times,
Sure.
you could orchestrate some sort of a bunch of nefarious exploitation activity. But I mean, I see it's an interesting perspective. I think it's an
Yeah.
interesting perspective for sure.
And
That's
I've said before, like, I encourage attackers to try to use AIs to write Metasploit modules and write their attacks with them because AIs are real bad at like learning on the job. They can't, right? That's why training is so wildly expensive and happens in the background.
Yeah.
But they're going to like commit the same sins over and over again. And so, like, if you use AI to write your exploits, you're going to have artifacts in there that are going to be trivially easy to detect. So
Yeah.
please, bad guys, use AI to write real exploits. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
That doesn't count for like social engineering stuff, right? I do think the
Yeah.
translation, the culturalization of knowledge that you can get through AI, like I don't have to be not only a native English speaker, but like a native Texan, right? To sound like a Texan through
Right.
AI. And it
Right.
won't set, and you can dial it to not sound cartoonishly Texan.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that what I thought was funny, I never actually thought like the way that you kind of like dove into the head of um like the Anthropic folks being like, oh, this is, braggy and look at how we can do this. I never did that. But I was trying to think about like the attackers and the adversary. And one thing I thought about was like, I wonder if this was like some intern who had been tasked with, hey, go figure out which model you can do this with, and
Sure.
was essentially like released that on their own and was kind of just like mucking around and doing this on their own, like, and then like has this whole report written about them. I don't know that, again, that's just me speculating,
Yeah.
like, hypothesis generating. But I thought about like, what if this was just like a person who was like given a task just to like keep them busy, and then this is what they came up with. We don't know, and I'm really
Yeah.
interested, maybe one day down the road, like we saw with, Syrian Electronic Army, maybe in 15
Mhm.
years, we'll get to see the course filing on the person who actually did
Sure.
this,
Yeah.
and we'll learn a lot more.
Yeah.
Low level coffee hacker.
Maybe.
Just
Maybe.
doing their best.
Yep.
Okay, so both of you have like a lot of foundational cybersecurity knowledge, more than most people on the planet. And so how do you think about like, okay, where we are today, where we're going tomorrow? There's a lot of innovation going on. Clearly, AI is driving most of that innovation or some of that innovation. Like, do you think, and Todd, you sort of mentioned this on the Defender side, but
Mhm.
do you think that we're going to see like a fundamental change or at the beginnings of I don't want to be so dramatic, but like the beginning of fundamental
Mhm.
change in 2026 that is different than what we saw before, given this innovation? Like, do either of you think that to be true?
I so I think where the action ad is in triage, like I said. And
Yeah.
so you can get things out of that that were difficult to do before, right? So like one of the biggest complaints about the CVE program and vulnerability disclosure in general, right, is like there's not enough information here for me to act on. I can't tell, I don't have a machine readable way to, pin this down to vendor and product, and do I have this thing in my network that's affected by this vulnerability, right? I think when you use LLMs to read vulnerability reports, everything's machine readable now, right? And so you don't need a thing like CPE and Perl if you're accepting of the error rate. Um, and there's a human review step and all that. I think LLMs are really like they are designed for classification, right? And so I think that you can find yourself. I think it would be weird in 2026. By the end of 2026, let's say, I think it would be weird to be in a shop that doesn't have some kind of LLM assist on what's the vulnerability du jour? Do I have it in my network? What can I do about it? Is there a patch? Like just that very basic stuff that you would be tasking a junior person to find out, right? I
Right.
think
Right.
that's where it probably is best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, because like a lot of the foundational capabilities and knowledge, I think LLMs are good at that, and I think it's good at teaching it. I'm really excited. I get to go do a tour of some of our high schools. I have high school students, and I get to go visit one of their cybersecurity classes, and I'm going to see how they're using like AI in their teaching, and like they're learning stuff now because they have like capabilities to, take these really complex books, that we used to like read through, like studying for like
With
my
our
CISSP.
boring, goopy eyes.
Exactly. And like use an LLM to be like, hey, rewrite this to something a 16-year-old is going to find interesting and absorb. And they're going to be able to like learn these foundational things much easier, absorb them faster because we have these new capabilities that we didn't have. So I think that like it's just going to raise the bar, and that's going to make it
Mhm.
easier again to do some of these easier tasks and allow people to dive deep and specialize and really um, spend their time on like the things that we didn't used to be able to have to spend our time on because we're like tracking down like who owns this 2008 server because it
Yeah.
has like
Right.
a Kerberos vulnerability and I don't know who's responsible for patching it. So if we don't have to do that, what can we spend our time on? But then on the counter side, again, going back to my teenagers, like there's a difference between, hey, rephrase this complex subject so it's interesting to me and like do my homework for me.
Yeah.
And models aren't perfect. Like you said, they're not good at learning and they hallucinate. And
Mhm.
if they hallucinate that we don't have any 2008 servers and everything's fine, and we do, then we're not, and no one knows how to verify or validate, then we're in a bad position. So I think as long as we can like use these as tools, but we don't lose the capability or lose that institutional knowledge of how to go back and verify, then I think we'll be in a really good position.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the job, it's the human review step that is crucial, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that people are gonna that's the part that people are going to screw up. I think
Yeah.
you're going to fire and lay off a big chunk of your security workforce. You're going to farm it out to AI, and then you're going to find out you needed that
Yeah.
expertise. Then you're going to try to hire them back, but oops, they starved to death. Sorry, because everybody got fired. And
Wow,
so-
that went dark there. I was going to say, like we saw this recently with some like cyber attacks against critical infrastructure,
Yeah.
like some of the water facilities, water treatment facilities, because they have moved to like automation recently enough that when they have to flip the switch and go back to manual operations, the people there know how to do it. Like they remember a time when everything was manual, and they can
Mhm.
go back and fall back to that. But we're not too far from a time when that knowledge doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And if we lose that entirely, again, we could be in a bad position, especially if you have fired all of those people and you are just relying on AI or on
Mhm.
automation.
Right.
So
On it.
yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so one thing that and Todd and I had this conversation like a while ago, was kind of like, okay, so we've been talking about the use of AI for cybersecurity operations, for defense, for offense, but there's also this notion of like, hey, we're all talking about these companies that are deploying AI pretty broadly. Like, how do you both think about the general, like what we talk a lot about is like the expansion of the attack surface and that AI is part of that. Like, how do either of you think about this notion? Because Todd, you've just said, right? Like, hey, there's hallucinations that occur. It's like not entirely accurate. Like that in itself does pose some sort of a risk. Any thoughts about this notion?
I had a conversation a little while ago with my pal Jerry Gamblin, noted security curmudgeon, and he said something like, like the bar for AI is like 90% accurate. And like we live in a world where like five nines is pretty good, right?
Right.
Like 90% is one nine.
Right.
You just get the one. And so like as long as you're still like aiming for 90% and that maybe it comes short, maybe hit like 88%. Like, I mean, that really sucks. Like that like at scale, that's
Right.
terrible,
That's
right?
terrible.
Like you're wrong one in 10 times. Is that the same rate as a well-meaning intern or a trained, fresh CS grad at their first computer science security job? Like maybe that's about where people are at. And so that's okay. Like as long as you have supervision, right? You can catch that one in 10. But I think that reliability is going to be the kill, and that's why I only trust it for like triage and not action.
Right.
Yeah, I think the more that we do trust AI, the more it becomes kind of autonomous and it's making decisions on our behalf and we're trusting it to do that. That's
Mhm.
when the attack surface really starts to expand because then you can start targeting those agents the same way you would target users, um, because they're not infallible.
Mhm.
And I can see that we'll see like the attack surface will expand, And I don't know, I'm sure there are some really creative ways that it can be targeted, but it will also be like the same thing. So we'll see the same end user targeting. Like, you can social engineer AI.
Yeah,
We have seen
turns
it
out.
happen. Absolutely. So we will see that social engineering happen. We'll
Yeah,
see.
they're just like us.
Exactly. Except they don't learn. Well, I mean, I know a lot of people who don't learn either.
Yeah.
And the supply chain, there'll be that supply chain angle as well, because there's the whole, like, there's the plugins, there's the third-party APIs, like the supply chain attack surface will expand exponentially as well. Again, but that's only when we start, to Todd's point, when we take that human out of the loop and when we
Mhm.
trust AI. And I live in a little bit of a bubble because I work with a lot of analysts who are very skeptical, and we like never trust there to not be a human in the loop. But I'm guessing that's not how the rest of the world views things.
No, not.
Well, here's the thing. Like, okay, so I have an example. In vulnerability research and disclosure and all that, there is a class of vulnerability, right, called the self cross-site scripting. And the vulnerability goes something like this. I type in, alert foo in my URL bar in my browser, and then I get alert foo, right? This is a lame attack, right? Because the only person affected is me. It rarely even like the CVEs get rejected for stuff like this. It rarely rates anybody, right? Because the only target of the attack is me. Now, enter agentic AI who's taking my email and doing things on my behalf. All of a sudden, all this self-own class of vulnerabilities. So self cross-site scripting or just like lateral things that, the root user can do something that root user can normally do, but in a weird way, right? Those kinds of bugs now get pushed out and it means like a redefinition of what does user interaction really mean when you're talking about vulnerability and exploits when you have an AI that's just kind of quietly doing things for you in this like agentic way, right? So like I think so you will have an old class of bug that sucked become a new class of bug that's kind of rad.
Right, right.
There's
And there's
actually, I had
tons
a,
of them. They don't get fixed, Lee.
No, those are,
yeah, I had a conversation recently with this gentleman who has a PhD in theology and studies AI. Very,
yeah.
very interesting
Oh,
Oh,
this is
conversation.
sure.
Rebecca. This is like a fairly like philosophy. We did this thing
Mhm.
with AI red teamers, and a
Yeah,
lot of
Yeah.
theory,
like
consciousness, all that.
philosophy,
Yeah.
linguistic kind of people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But he talked about uh how people have this like this profound like desire like to believe AI because it's
Mhm.
the computer. And so the same way you might be skeptical if a person is telling you something, or if a person does something, or if you think it's a little like weird or off if a person said it, but if because the AI is telling you or because it does it, you're like, okay, that's weird, but I guess it's right. And I can see from a security perspective that getting us as well, because if you have those human instincts of like, even that we get honed in us as like security
Mhm.
practitioners, like that gut feeling of I don't think this is right can get overridden, because if it
Right.
is being done by AI, which is part of a computer program or computer model, then we have these like intuitions that that must be right, that can override our own judgment. And so I
Right.
think that is like that made me really think about, oh no, is this gonna be something we're gonna have to, let's go a whole new type of bias,
Uh,
that I teach for SANS, and so is this a whole new thing I'm gonna have to unlearn or teach people to be aware of, because it's not something we kind of thought that we were gonna have to deal with. So that's maybe something new in 2026 I'm gonna have to figure out, is how to um, account for those types of biases.
Yeah, I think one thing that Todd said, and Todd, your point about kind of the kind of autonomous agents. I mean, one thing that we've seen in the last, I mean, this has only been around since like end of November of last year,
yeah.
with like this concept of like using MCP servers, right? And so what people are starting to do, because MCP servers are kind of amazing, right? You can connect to GitHub, you can connect to Slack, you can connect to Jira, whatever. Like there's thousands of these things out there. And if you build agents that connect to models that connect to external MCP servers, like you can do all kinds of magic stuff. And to your point, if it's not well understood, it can really go off the rails. Like in a
So
whole,
this is an area where like IoT has already stepped on this rake, right? Like when we saw convergence of like IoT stuff, not OT, just like regular consumer grade, garbage, right?
yeah,
That falls onto people's networks. The kinds of bugs that Daryl Highland and I were often documenting
yeah,
were basically came down to a system was expecting to see user input from a machine that also is controlled by the same system. And the bug comes up when like, oops, hacker shows up and does something unexpected. And I'm seeing that pattern starting to emerge like in MCP land now. Where it's
yeah,
like, oh, well, if I just ignore the AI part, I just connect to this MCP server and give a post. I can tell to do whatever I want.
yeah,
Because like the MCP server sometimes, depending on who wrote it and how they deployed it and all that other stuff, like often they will just presume my source is going to come from a model that has all the safety gates and won't let the person like write hacking software or whatever. Whereas like, oh, and also it's open to the internet, and also like maybe the enforcement of privileges is not really tight. And I mean,
yeah.
we just released a bug on some MC Hex Strike AI was the project. I'd never heard of it before. And we just released one. It was about 2 weeks ago, as we're recording this, and it was essentially that. It's like, oh, just connect to the HTTP server, send a post, nmap, dash whatever, dash o, dash whatever, semicolon, do whatever I want now because I'm root.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's interesting. I mean, we're definitely seeing this proliferation, and organizations are pretty concerned about it. So many of them are not allowing the use of MCP yet, or they want to, but they can. And anyways, I think this in 26, it'll be interesting to see how many MCP servers emerge and how many are compromised and how many have a lot
I
of.
really hope people look at the track record of like just consumer grade IoT and how they handled this kind of thing. Because
Yeah,
it's starting to rhyme.
yeah, it's interesting. I never had thought about it that way, but
Yeah.
that is definitely interesting. Um, Okay, just a little more specificity maybe now about like, do you think that, well, we sort of hit this a little bit, but are there any new attack paths or categories of exploits that people should consider in 2026 that maybe they weren't considering before? We kind of talked about a few of them, but is there anything else you would add, either of you would add?
I think it's the click carefully problem, right? Like you tell people to read their email and click links carefully. And I don't know how to click carefully and uncarefully. And I certainly don't know how to tell people how to click carefully. And that's the problem we're kind of in right now, I think, with like I mean, the push for the chatbots that we call AI, it was surprising, it was fast, and it was just kind of dumped on us all at once, which is fine. This is how the internet works, right? That's how .com happened. That's how Google, that's how like Chrome auto updating out from under you was such a weird thing for Google to do at the time. And now we just kind of expect it to happen, right? So like violent changes in behavior are pretty commonplace. But like the catch up now is like, okay, well, how do we train people on how to click carefully? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think just in increasing automation of a lot of things, of these things, like even more like automated, like I can see a lot of with fraud and like financial abuse as like there's more of these like agent-based transactions. And again, if you click, it's going to take a series of actions where there's like no human in the loop. And it's going to like to Todd's point, it's going to be faster. So I can see just the speed and the scale of things increasing. Again, maybe it's just like a lack of creativity on my point. I'm not, I don't know that I'm seeing new classes or categories of vulnerabilities, but I'm just seeing things happening faster with more extreme impacts than we're seeing now.
Right, scale. It's more about scale.
Yeah.
That's Todd what you said
And
too.
speed. Yeah.
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 That's the thing that LLMs get you is scale. There was a funny thing in the Texas legislature here in Texas. I'm very involved in Texas politics these days. There was a fight in the local Texas Senate, and my representative said like, "Hey, we have an opportunity to filibuster this thing. Please email me like some things I can read on the floor to fill time. But remember, because in Texas it's a little different from US, it must be germane to the topic." And I'm like, ChatGPT, you know what to do. And like inside of 20 minutes, I had emailed my representative 10 times with long, long diatribes on why this thing was bad. And so like so for filibuster rules in state houses, ChatGPT has got your back.
Yeah, it's interesting. We definitely see a lot of people using, it's funny, we talk a lot to a lot of large enterprises and it's like, hey, are you doing that, but in the business context, right? So like, are you
Mhm.
using an LLM to write an email? Because a lot of people are doing that. But the question is like, are you starting
Are
to
you
build
replying to the LLM's email with your LLM email?
possible, right? People are doing that kind of a thing. But the question is like, are you building business functionality using AI and allowing it to make decisions?
Mhm.
And we are definitely seeing a lot more of that than we
Mhm.
were 12 months ago. Like there's many initiatives now where it's like maybe it's a internal application to summarize invoice data or analyze invoice data. Maybe it's a customer service application that helps a customer service rep look up tickets and respond to a customer. Like we're seeing a lot more of that now. And I don't know, I think that that will it's gone from like these pilots to like real world use.
Yeah.
I think that'll be interesting.
Well, and it's the business email compromise problem, right? Like I send you the fake invoice, your AI summarizes it for me, thinks it's real, tells you to pay it. And now you have also the cognitive bias that Rebecca was talking about. Because it's written down, it feels more authoritative than someone just telling it to you.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Todd. That is an interesting point on fraud for sure,
Yeah.
right? Like, and back to your point about scale, fraud at scale for sure. Um, all right, so let's what do you think the most if you're sitting here today, what do you think the most underestimated risk of 26 will be or is?
Rebecca.
Let's see. I've got two. The kind of that identity overload that we were talking about earlier, where there's so many, we were talking about it with IoT. It's kind of parallel to IoT. There's so many devices out there to keep track of. And a lot of the current like identity management systems were built for like people and human accounts. And especially with organizations that have been around for a long time and their like security programs are based on that concept of like an account is a person and I know how it acts and it responds. I think that's going to be a big security risk, because to your point, if you start, plugging in these agents and giving them permissions, we don't know how they're supposed to act. And so
Yeah.
if you allow it to do, an HTTP post, it might not be intuitive that that's not allowed. I can see people being like, is that what it does? Is that normal? Is that allowed? And that just causing a lot of complexity and confusion because we don't know how these new accounts and these new identities that are created by all these agents are supposed to act on our networks. So I can see that being just a big introducing a lot of risk and causing a lot of lags in security response time. And then, kind of similarly on the individual level, uh, advertising technology and advertising intelligence just like scares the pants off me because it's gathering so much information about everyone out there. And when you think about now harnessing the capabilities of AI against that, against like an aggregated database of everything about you and turning that into a phishing email, um, that is to me, it just opens so many doors for attackers to be so convincing.
Yeah.
And I think I think especially not just 2026, but like the long tail of that. I think about like young people today who like Snapchat. They're like, yeah, I have access to everything. Have my location. That's great. And you've got this now database of everything about their whole lives and how 10 years down the road, um, that's how that can be used. And again, in phishing, but then in just so many creative ways that attackers can use. That's going to turn the whole identity and what what you are, what you have, like that whole security paradigm is just not no longer going to be valid. And so I think that kind of those two things together are going to create just these like security like risks and shifts that we need to have started preparing for like 10 years ago. I know some people have, so that's great. But those
Mhm.
are the two things that are kind of top of mind for me. Like, how do we account for and deal with these like right now?
Yeah, I think you said you basically talked about. I mean, it's a little different, but the first thing you talked about was really about behavior, right? Like this
Mhm.
automated behavior and what is it? Is it normal? Is it good? Is it bad? Yes. But it's also when you talk about people, it's the same thing, right? Like it's
Yeah,
kind of a similar concept,
yeah,
right? Now, and a little bit of like to your point about the treasure trove of info that is out there, and that could like uh, create or kind of imply certain people to do certain things that they shouldn't or click on things they shouldn't. And again, it's at
Oh
the end
yeah.
of the day, it gets down to behavior.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's the radicalization problem, right? In YouTube, like, oh, you like this, you might like this, you might like this, you might like this. Oops, you're a Nazi.
right.
You know? Um, the thing I worry about for real, that I worry about the radicalization too. The thing I worry about for real is something that Rebecca brought up earlier in her work with like education and all that. I believe with no data, I want data on it. I believe with no data that the pipeline of junior software developers are getting dumber because of ChatGPT specifically. I think that they're using LLMs to do their homework for them. I don't think they're all doing it. And I don't think they're all doing it I don't think the few who are doing it all the time. But I think generally speaking, the quality of the education and the quality of training is going to be trending down just as Gen Xers, who I believe are the only generation who actually know how to use computers, are starting to retire. And I think we're 2 years into, ChatGPT, two or three, right? Depending on how you count. Which means that like people who are pursuing 2 year degrees are just starting to graduate now, and they might have been cheating the entire time. And that really does worry me because like it's that like, oh, well, if it's 90% accurate, maybe that's as good as a, new hire first job, right? But if that new hire first job skill set is way down and they don't know what to check because they never did the homework, they never did it. I worry about that. I worry about
Yeah, we definitely see when we talk to people about AI coding, what we tend to hear is like if you're a senior engineer, it can supercharge you, right? But if you're a
that.
junior engineer, it can lead you down the wrong path,
Yeah.
right? To your point, Todd, you don't know what to check. And I think the downstream like security risk of that is obviously like you're going to have more vulnerabilities, you're going to create more vulnerable code, it's going to be weaker, it's going to be flawed, like all of those things,
Yeah.
right?
Specifically in like static API keys, right? This is like a huge fail that like AI will do over and over and over and over again because it never learns on the job.
Yeah.
And like every example for like, oh, write me a thing in Python that does a blah, blah, blah and connects to a whatever, right? Like it's going to pull the answers from the training data, which is Stack Overflow and Quora and Reddit. And it'll say like, oh yeah, just do this. API key equals ABCD123, right? It's like no notion of like and then go to disk and look for it there, go to memory and go look in the environment variable. None of that like subtleties of like how to handle API keys like is presented in the example solution it gives you. Copy, paste, commit, ship.
Right, right.
What,
Yeah,
what
it's
might what might make things a little better? Like I tend to be an optimist, so
Uh-huh.
maybe I could all be proven wrong. So the people you're talking about who are like graduating now, they would
Mhm.
tell you they weren't cheating because there was no guidance. Because like
Oh,
this, they didn't know.
I don't blame them. It's
But
programmers are lazy on purpose.
they are starting to come out with guidance. Like they just came out with guidance like a month ago for like some of the AP courses on
Mhm.
here's how you can use AI. And thank goodness it is not you can never use it. Because if you said that,
Oh
then
no, yeah.
they would just, but they are providing guidance like very specifically. You can use it for idea generation. You can use
Mhm.
it for proofreading and copy edit. You can never use it for summarizing your perspective, And so I think as the education pipeline like catches up with the fact that people are doing this and they come up with ways to provide guidance that is not have it do your homework, you will
Mhm.
always have the people who are lazy and they always have the people who break the system, but hey, maybe they turn into hackers.
Yeah.
um, but I think that we probably have this period of gap of time where we really suffered because nobody was talking about it, and they were just like, I don't know, hoping that it would go away and that they wouldn't have to deal with it. But
Mhm.
now we are, and I think that now we do have an opportunity in education to use it as a tool. And again, I'm very overly optimistic. It's a good day for me. Don't I'm not always,
Like it,
but
Rebecca.
I do think that there are now that there's guidance, people can start using it as tools, and maybe we won't only have junior developers who have no idea how to do anything without these tools because
Mhm.
they won't always be available. And you're right, they aren't perfect. So
Mhm.
maybe that's some good news.
I like that, Rebecca.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
The
believe
the AI optimist that I would not have expected.
I'm
So
not always. Don't get me started.
it. It's Tuesday.
true. So okay, so before we wrap up, one last question. And we started with this, but like what's on your security bingo card for 2026?
My AI assistant got fished by Todd's AI assistant.
I would never. I would never.
That's a good one.
How dare you? I think there will be a here's the thing. Here's something nice and vague. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I think there will be a new class of software vulnerability entirely invented by AI in 2026. And I think that the people who are working in the industry today are largely going to be the same people who are working a year from now, and they're all going to say, I told you so. And none of them did. And I think that it won't be just like an evolution of attack because I think that AI and the way that like models work and the way that like the trigonometry works, right, is that models don't think in English and they don't think like computer programmers. They think like LLMs and they're different. And I think they're different on the inside. And then I will
Yeah.
happily talk to your theologian friend, Rebecca, about that and find out
Yeah.
if they have a soul. But I think that they will come up with a solution to some problem, and and it will work, and no one will know why, and it will proliferate around. It'll be a preferred solution, and then oops, it's a bug, and it's in everything. I think that's what will happen in 2026, and I think 2026 will be where it happens. I don't think we're going to have to wait 5 years for that. I think it'll be next year.
Okay. Wow, that's bold, Todd.
It's fascinating.
I don't know what
You
it
know,
is. That's the
yeah,
vague part.
yeah. No,
But
I
like
can
prompt
see that
injection was two
though.
years old, right?
Yeah,
Like
prompt
Yeah,
injection
basically.
it's about 2 years old now. Yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think I think there's room for one more.
Oh
I
yeah,
think so.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
think what we're going to see, if like going back to the Anthropic report and attackers trying to create these like systems where they can just give it a target and like unleash it and it will do magic. I think if we continue to see that, we're going to run into some threat actors hacking themselves. And that's going to be really interesting.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like all the crypto gangs, all the like
Yeah.
the Russian crypto gangs going after each other and like turning
Yes.
and all the
Yeah.
Yes.
turncoat drama that
They're going to
happens in
make
there.
mistakes. They're going
Yeah.
to, because they, like, they talked about it, like fabricating credentials, like finding, like, what if they turn against an internal system and find our internal credentials and like make it a valid target?
And dump it.
Again,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
more you automate these things, so I think it's gonna manifest in some interesting ways that's gonna cause even the attackers to be like, wait a minute, this is not as great as we thought. Put a pause on it.
It's not what I wanted. Well, hey, thank you so much, both of you. It's a pleasure to be able to spend an hour with you, Todd and Rebecca. Really appreciate your
Thanks.
insight here. It was awesome. And have a good rest of your year and look
Thank
forward
you.
to 2026 here.
Thank you. You
Thanks.
as well.
All
Thanks,
right,
Lee.
thanks.
Nice to see
Thanks,
you again,
everybody. All right,
Rebecca.
we'll see you all.